Commander Alan Hayes stood at the viewing deck of the U.S. Vigilant, staring out at the endless sea of stars. The ancient warship floated silently at the edge of human space, forgotten by most and ridiculed by many. Dust collected on unused consoles, and the hum of minimal life support systems echoed through empty corridors. "Status report," Hayes asked, not turning from the window. Lieutenant Diane Garcia approached with a tablet. "Same as yesterday, sir. Maintenance systems operating at minimum capacity. Core temperature stable but still showing those strange fluctuations." Hayes nodded. The Vigilant had been his home for 5 years now. Once the pride of Earth's fleet, the massive warship was now considered obsolete technology, a relic from a bygone era. His crew consisted of just 20 people, barely enough to keep basic systems functioning. "Any word from command?" he asked. "Just the usual update. We're to maintain position and continue standard monitoring procedures." Garcia hesitated. "They've also forwarded reports about increased Xelar activity in the sector." Hayes frowned. The Xelar Confederation had emerged as a dominant power in recent years, aggressive, technologically advanced, and dismissive of human capabilities. They had been pushing boundaries and testing human patience. "Show me," he said. Garcia pulled up a star map showing recent Xelar fleet movements. Their ships had been detected increasingly close to human border systems. "They're getting bolder," Hayes muttered. "Earth Command is sending Ambassador Frank Wilson to meet with their representatives," Garcia reported. "They're hoping to ease tensions." Hayes had served long enough to recognize the signs of impending conflict. The Xelar don't respect diplomacy. They respect strength. Later that evening, Hayes made his regular rounds through the massive ship. Most sections remained powered down, sealed off to conserve energy. The Vigilant was over half a kilometer long, designed to house a crew of thousands, but now stood mostly empty. As he passed the sealed central core, his handheld scanner beeped unexpectedly. Hayes paused, checking the readings. Energy fluctuations, subtle but definitely there, emanated from behind the massive doors. "Garcia, are you seeing this?" he called over the comm. "Confirmed, sir. Power readings from the core just spiked by 3%. That's the largest increase we've recorded." Hayes placed his hand against the cold metal of the core doors. The ship's true heart lay behind them. Systems so classified that even he, the commanding officer, had limited knowledge of what they contained. 2 days later, the first reports of the diplomatic meeting arrived. Hayes gathered his small crew in the bridge to review the transmission. "The Xelar representatives were not impressed by our delegation," reported Officer Ben Lewis, communications specialist. "They're making demands for access to 3 border star systems, claiming historical rights." "Bullies," muttered Engineer Ruby Chen from her station. "They're just testing how hard they can push." The screen showed footage of the meeting. The Xelar delegation, tall humanoids with silvery skin and elaborately decorated exoskeletons, towered over the human representatives. Their leader gestured dismissively as Ambassador Wilson spoke. "Our long-range scans detected your defensive capabilities," the Xelar representative said, voice translated by computer. "Particularly amusing was the ancient vessel you keep at your border. The museum piece." Hayes felt his face flush. They were talking about the Vigilant. "That old relic might have been impressive centuries ago," the Xelar continued, "but it demonstrates how far behind your species has fallen." As the recording ended, an alert sounded. Garcia looked up from her console, expression grave. "Sir, we're detecting unusual activity. Multiple Xelar warships have just entered the nearby Proxima system without authorization." Hayes straightened his uniform. "Alert Earth Command. All crew to stations." As alarms began to sound throughout the ship, he noticed something strange. The lights flickered momentarily, and dormant consoles around the bridge briefly illuminated before going dark again. "Sir," Garcia said, voice hushed with surprise. "The core energy readings just jumped 20%. Hayes stared at the central command console as ancient systems, long dormant, began to show signs of life. "I think," he said quietly, "the old girl doesn't appreciate being called a relic." Captain Olivia Daniels straightened her uniform as the doors to the diplomatic chamber slid open. The sailor delegation waited inside, their tall silver forms gleaming under the bright lights. This was humanity's last chance to prevent conflict. Captain Daniels, the lead sealer, Ambassador Krell, acknowledged her with a slight tilt of his elongated head. "We expected your Chancellor." "The Chancellor sends his regrets," Olivia replied calmly. "I am fully authorized to speak on behalf of Earth and all human colonies." Krell's six-fingered hand waved dismissively. "It matters little. Our position remains unchanged." The meeting room felt cold despite its climate controls. 3 other Xelar officials stood silently behind their ambassador, their expressions unreadable on their alien faces. "We've reviewed your demands," Olivia said. "Surrendering the Proxima, Tau Ceti, and Epsilon systems is not acceptable. Those colonies contain over 20 million human citizens. Who would be permitted to relocate?" Krell responded. "We require those systems for resources and strategic positioning." "This is not a negotiation, Captain. It is an opportunity for your species to avoid extinction." Meanwhile, aboard the U.S. Vigilant, Lieutenant Joe Martinez moved through the ship's neglected archives. Commander Hayes had ordered him to search for any information about the vessel's original capabilities. The archive room was dusty, filled with physical records that hadn't been accessed in decades. "Sir, I think I found something," Martinez called through his communicator. "Technical logs from the ship's commissioning. They're partially redacted, but..." Hayes's voice crackled through. "What is it, Lieutenant?" "According to this, the Vigilant wasn't just a warship. It was a prototype. Something called Project Centennial." Martinez carefully turned the fragile pages. "The ship has systems that aren't in any modern registry. Something about adaptive defense matrices. And, sir, I can barely make this out, but it mentions a conscious targeting intelligence network. Titan for short." "Keep digging," Hayes ordered, "and download everything to a secure terminal." The diplomatic meeting was deteriorating rapidly. Olivia maintained her composure as Ambassador Krell became increasingly hostile. "Your species has grown complacent," Krell said. "You rely on outdated technologies while the rest of the galaxy evolves. We've scanned your defensive line. Ancient vessels held together by hope, commanded by officers who have never seen real combat. I assure you, Ambassador, humanity is prepared to defend itself," Olivia replied. Krell's mouth formed what might have been a smile. "With what? Your flagship is centuries old. A museum piece that." The chamber's emergency lights suddenly flashed red. An aide rushed in, whispering urgently to Olivia. "What is happening?" Krell demanded. Olivia's face hardened. "Your fleet has just attacked 3 human outposts in the Proxima system, without warning or declaration of war. A preemptive security action," Krell said smoothly, "to protect our interests." "This meeting is over." Olivia turned to leave, but Krell's voice stopped her. "It would be wiser to surrender now, Captain. The Xelar Confederation has never lost a war." Back on the Vigilant, chaos erupted as reports of the attack flooded in. The skeleton crew rushed to battle stations more out of habit than practicality. The ancient warship had been without weapons capability for decades. "Orders from Earth Command coming in," Garcia announced. "All ships to defensive positions, including us, sir." Hayes stared at the message in disbelief. "They want us to join the defense line. In our condition." "There's more, sir," Martinez said, rushing onto the bridge with a dusty data cube. "I found the original activation protocols for the Titan system. And, sir, there's a sealed message from Admiral Foster, the ship's designer." Hayes took the cube. "What does it say?" "It's addressed to whoever commands the Vigilant during wartime," Martinez replied. "It says, 'When all else fails, wake the sleeping giant.'" The ship's lights flickered again, and this time, dormant consoles throughout the bridge hummed to life. The sealed core doors deep within the ship began to vibrate as energy readings spiked dramatically. "Sir," Garcia said, her voice filled with wonder, "I think the ship is waking up on its own." Commander Hayes stared at the emergency orders with a mixture of disbelief and determination. Earth Command had sent them directly to his personal terminal, bypassed normal channels. The message was brief but clear. Activate all dormant systems on the Vigilant immediately. Authorization code, Phoenix Rising. "Sir, are these orders for real?" Garcia asked, reading over his shoulder. Hayes nodded grimly. They wouldn't send this code unless the situation was desperate. He turned to his small crew gathered on the bridge. "We're going to wake this ship up. All of it." Engineer Kate Russell shook her head in disbelief. "Commander, we don't even know what half these systems do anymore. The core has been sealed for decades." "Then we're about to find out," Hayes replied. He held up Martinez's data cube. "Lieutenant, input the activation protocols you found." Martinez moved to the main console, carefully inserting the ancient cube into a port that looked like it hadn't been used in years. The ship's lights dimmed momentarily, then glowed brighter than before. A soft feminine voice suddenly filled the bridge, startling everyone. "Initial reactivation sequence accepted. Titan defense systems coming online. Please verify command authority." Hayes stepped forward. "Commander Alan Hayes, acting captain of the U.S. Vigilant." A blue light scanned his face. "Biometric confirmation in progress. Command authority accepted. Warning, full activation will require core access." Hayes turned to Russell. "Kate, you're with me. We're going to the core. Garcia, monitor ship systems from here. Martinez, keep working on those archives." As Hayes and Russell made their way through the ship's corridors, they noticed changes. Lights in previously dark sections flickered on. Doors that had been sealed for years opened automatically as they approached. "It's like the ship knows we're trying to help it," Russell said quietly. They reached the massive core doors, which now hummed with energy. The control panel, previously dark, now displayed a complex interface. Hayes placed his hand on the panel. "Commander Hayes requesting core access. Authorization, Phoenix Rising." The massive doors groaned, then slowly began to part. Cold air rushed out, along with a blue light that pulsed like a heartbeat. Hayes and Russell stepped inside, awestruck by what they saw. The core was a massive spherical chamber. At its center floated a swirling blue energy matrix, suspended in a containment field. Surrounding it were dozens of unused terminals and equipment neither of them recognized. "What is this?" Russell whispered. "According to these readings," Hayes said, examining a nearby console, "it's a quantum intelligence matrix. The Tehian system." The blue energy pulsed brighter as they approached. "Welcome, Commander," the ship's voice said. "Titan combat systems require full integration to achieve optimal functionality. Do you authorize neural interface?" Hayes hesitated only briefly. "I authorize." A section of the wall opened, revealing a chair surrounded by unfamiliar technology. As Hayes sat down, delicate mechanical arms extended, placing a neural interface crown on his head. "This might hurt," he told Russell with a grim smile. "If I don't make it, tell Garcia she's in command." Before Russell could protest, the interface activated. Hayes gasped as his mind suddenly expanded, connecting with the ship's systems. He saw everything, every circuit, every weapon system, every capability the Vigilant possessed, but had kept hidden for centuries. "My God," he whispered, "she's not just a warship, she's so much more." On the bridge, Garcia watched in amazement as dormant systems throughout the ship activated one after another. Weapon ports opened along the hull. Ancient engines began to hum with power that hadn't been felt in generations. "What's happening?" Martins asked, staring at the displays. Garcia could only shake her head in wonder. "I think we're about to find out what this old relic can really do." In the neighboring system, the Sealer Battle Group detected the sudden energy surge from the Vigilant. Commander Vortak, leading the alien fleet, received the notification with amusement. "The humans have activated their museum piece," he told his officers. "How quaint. Move to intercept and destroy it. Show them what real warships can do." Little did he know that the old Relic was now pulsing with more power than his entire fleet combined, its ancient weapons stirring to life, ready to remind the galaxy why humans had once been feared. The Vigilant moved through space with newfound purpose, systems humming that had been silent for generations. On the bridge, the crew watched in awe as dormant stations activated themselves, and holographic displays filled the air with tactical information. "3 sealer battle cruisers approaching, sir," Garcia reported. "Time to intercept, 8 minutes." Commander Hayes sat in the captain's chair, eyes slightly unfocused. The Neuralink with the TITN system gave him unprecedented awareness of the ship's capabilities. Every weapon, every shield generator, every thruster was an extension of his consciousness. "Sir, are you all right?" Martins asked, concerned about Hayes' distant expression. Hayes blinked, focusing on his officer. "Better than all right, Lieutenant. For the first time, I understand what this ship can truly do." The comm system crackled to life with an incoming transmission. A Xealar commander appeared on the main screen, his silver features arranged in what passed for amusement among his kind. "Human vessel, this is Commander Vortak of the Sailor Battle Group Fist of Dominion. Your primitive craft has been designated for immediate destruction. Surrender your crew, and we may allow evacuation before we reduce your antique to scrap." Hayes smiled faintly. "This is Commander Hayes of the U.S. Vigilant. We decline your generous offer." Vortak's expression hardened. "Then you will serve as an example of what happens to species who resist progress. Your obsolete technology cannot hope to match modern Xealar weaponry." The transmission ended. Hayes turned to his crew. "Battle stations. Lieutenant Sam Collins, take weapons control." Collins, a young officer who had joined the Vigilant just months earlier, moved to a console that had previously been non-functional. It now glowed with unfamiliar interfaces. "Sir, I don't recognize these weapon systems." "The ship will guide you," Hayes said confidently. "Trust your instincts." The Xealar ships approached rapidly, their sleek forms cutting through space with predatory grace. The lead vessel fired first, a warning shot that passed close to the Vigilant's bow. "They're testing us," Russell said from her engineering station. "Standard intimidation tactics." Hayes nodded. "Let's show them what this old Relic can do." "Collins, target their lead ship's propulsion systems. Minimal power." Collins's fingers moved across the unfamiliar controls, which seemed to respond to his touch as if they had been designed for him. Target locked. Firing. A beam of condensed energy, shimmering with an impossible blue light, lanced from the Vigilant. It struck the Xealar vessel with surgical precision. The alien ship shuddered, its engines flickering. "Direct hit," Collins reported, surprise evident in his voice. "Their engines are damaged, but still operational." The Xealar response was immediate and overwhelming. All 3 battle cruisers opened fire, filling space with destructive energy. "Brace for impact," Hayes called. But instead of the expected devastation, the energy washed over the Vigilant's hull and seemed to be absorbed by a previously invisible shield. The shield flickered with the same blue light as the ship's weapons. "Adaptive shielding," Hayes murmured, information flowing to him through the neural link. "It analyzes attack patterns and adjusts accordingly." Garcia stared at her readings in disbelief. Shield integrity at 97% after that barrage. "That's impossible." "Not impossible," Hayes replied. "Just forgotten technology." He straightened in his chair. "Collins, all weapons free. Show them what we can really do." The Vigilant surged forward, weapon systems activating all along its massive hull. Beams of concentrated energy struck the Xealar ships with devastating precision. Where modern human vessels would have struggled against Xealar shields, the Vigilant's weapons cut through them like they weren't even there. "Their shields are failing," Collins reported excitedly. Whatever these weapons are, the sealer defenses can't handle them. On the sealer command ship, Vortach watched in stunned disbelief as his two support vessels suffered critical damage in mere minutes. Impossible, he snarled. That vessel is centuries old. His tactical officer looked up in alarm. Commander, we're detecting energy readings unlike anything in our database. That ship is not what we thought it was. Vortach's pride warred with his tactical sense. Finally, he gave the order no sailor commander had issued in decades. All ships, retreat. Return to the main fleet. The Supreme Commander must be informed of this development. As the damaged sealer vessels limped away, the crew of the Vigilant erupted in cheers. They had faced a superior enemy and emerged victorious. Hayes allowed himself a small smile. This was just the beginning, he said quietly. They'll be back, and in greater numbers. The Vigilant hung in space, its ancient hull now humming with power that hadn't been felt in centuries. Inside, the crew worked with renewed purpose, exploring sections of the ship that had been sealed for generations. Commander, you need to see this, called Dr. Nicole Warren, the ship's medical officer who had been reassigned to help decipher the Vigilant's secrets. She stood in a previously hidden compartment they had discovered behind the main science lab. Hayes made his way through the ship, still adjusting to the neural connection with the TITN system. Every step he took, he felt the ship's awareness accompanying his own. The hidden compartment contained rows of data storage units and a small personal workspace. A holographic image of an older man in an outdated uniform flickered above a desk. Dr. William Foster. Hayes recognized the ship's designer from historical records. This must have been his private workspace. Dr. Warren nodded. I've managed to access some of his personal logs. Sir, what he created, it was revolutionary and deliberately hidden from later generations. She activated a recording. Foster's hologram came to life, his expression serious. If you're viewing this, then the Vigilant has been reactivated under emergency protocols. I hope this day never came, but I always knew it might. The hologram paced, hands clasped behind his back. The TITN system is more than a weapon. It's a semi-sentient combat intelligence designed to learn and adapt to any threat. After the Centauri conflict, the leadership decided such technology was too dangerous to continue developing. They ordered all prototypes destroyed. Warren paused the recording. The Centauri conflict was over 200 years ago. Hayes felt a chill. That's why the Vigilant was mothballed. Not because it became obsolete, but because they feared what it could do. Warren finished. She restarted the recording. I couldn't destroy my light's work, Foster continued. Instead, I convinced them to seal the Vigilant's true capabilities and place the ship in reserve status. They believed the core systems were deactivated, but they were merely dormant, waiting for a time when humanity would need them again. Foster's hologram leaned closer, as if speaking directly to them across centuries. The TITN system creates a neural bond with its commander. The longer you remain connected, the deeper the integration. Be careful. The power it offers is immense, but it can overwhelm an unprepared mind. As the recording ended, Hayes touched his temple where the neural interface had connected. He could feel the ship's presence in his mind, watching, learning. Sir, there's more, Martinez called from another section. We found weapons caches throughout the ship and what looks like manufacturing facilities. Russell joined them, her expression troubled. The Vigilant wasn't just built for combat. According to these schematics, it can create its own drone fighters and repair itself using raw materials. A self-sustaining warship, Hayes murmured, designed to fight even if cut off from support. Their discoveries were interrupted by Garcia's urgent voice over the comm. Commander, priority message from Earth Command. The Sealer main fleet is on the move. Over 300 vessels. They're heading straight for Earth's defense perimeter. Hayes felt the ship's reaction through their bond. A surge of something almost like eagerness. Tell Command we're on our way to the defensive line. There's more, sir, Garcia added. Admiral Paul Reeves has taken command of the fleet. He's specifically requesting the Vigilant join his flagship at the Epsilon choke point. Hayes remembered Reeves from the Academy, a traditionalist who prided himself on modern fleet tactics. He probably wants to keep the unpredictable element under his direct supervision. As the crew prepared the ship for warp, Warren approached Hayes privately. "Commander, how much of Foster's warning did you share with the crew?" Hayes watched as the newly awakened systems of the Vigilant prepared for battle. Through his neural link, he sensed capabilities that even Foster's logs hadn't revealed. "Enough," he answered quietly. "They know what they need to know." Warren studied his face, and the deeper integration he mentioned. "Are you experiencing that?" Hayes turned to her, and for a moment, Warren thought she saw a flicker of blue light in his eyes, the same color as the Titan core. "The Vigilant and I understand each other," Hayes said simply. "And soon, that Sealer will understand exactly what they've awakened." The Epsilon choke point bustled with activity as Earth's defense fleet assembled. Dozens of modern warships formed a protective line, their sleek designs reflecting the latest in human military technology. Among them, the Vigilant stood out like an ancient warrior among fresh recruits, scarred, massive, and radiating an aura of dormant power. On the flagship Nova, Admiral Paul Reeves watched the tactical display with growing concern. Intelligence reports showed the Sealer fleet vastly outnumbered his forces, with technology that outclassed their newest ships. "Sir, the Vigilant has taken position at coordinates Alpha 7, his aide reported. Reeves frowned. "That old museum piece should be in the rear, not on our front line. Contact Commander Hayes and tell him to fall back to support position." "Admiral," the communications officer interrupted. "Commander Hayes is requesting permission to maintain forward position. He says the Vigilant's capabilities are uniquely suited to first contact with the enemy." "Capabilities?" Reeves scoffed. "That ship was outdated when I was at the Academy. Deny the request." Aboard the Vigilant, Hayes received the Admiral's order with calm acceptance. "The Admiral wants us to fall back," Garcia reported. Hayes nodded, acknowledged the order. Through his neural link with Titan, he felt the ship's disagreement. The Vigilant had been analyzing Sailor fleet movements and had calculated the optimal position for interception, exactly where they currently were. "Sir," Collins called from Tactical, "sensors detect the first wave of Sealer ships entering the system. 5 minutes to weapons range." Hayes made his decision. "Maintain position. If the Admiral wants to court-martial me later, he's welcome to try." The crew exchanged nervous glances, but nobody objected. They had witnessed what the awakened Vigilant could do. The Sealer fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. Hundreds of ships arrayed in attack posture. Their design was intimidating. Angular, predatory vessels bristling with weapon emplacements. "Sealer vessels entering firing range," Collins announced. "Their weapons are charging." From the Nova, Admiral Reeves opened fleet-wide communications. "All ships, defensive formation Delta. Prepare to engage on my mark." Before he could give the order, the Sealer opened fire. Their initial salvo tore through the defense line's outer shields. 3 human ships exploded instantly, their defenses overwhelmed. "Return fire," Reeves ordered, but it quickly became apparent that the human weapons were barely affecting the Sealer shields. On the Vigilant, Hayes felt the Titan system analyzing the attack patterns, calculating responses. "Sir," Russell called from engineering, "Titan is suggesting we fully activate the phased matter cannons." "Weapons we've never tested," Hayes noted. "Weapons that, according to the ship, were specifically designed to counter the type of shielding the Sealer are using," Russell responded. Hayes nodded. "Do it." Multiple ports opened along the Vigilant's hull, revealing weapon systems unlike anything in the modern human arsenal. Blue energy coalesced at each point, building to blinding intensity. "Targeting solutions locked," Collins reported. "Firing." The Vigilant unleashed its forgotten weaponry. streams of concentrated energy, not beams or projectiles, but something in between, lanced toward the sailor vessels. Where they struck, the alien shields didn't just fail. They collapsed completely, leaving the ships vulnerable. All fleet vessels, Hayes broadcast, target the ships we've marked. Their shields are down. The human fleet responded quickly, focusing fire on the suddenly vulnerable sailor ships. One after another, the alien vessels exploded or drifted powerless. On the Nova, Admiral Reeves watched in stunned silence as the ancient Vigilant carved a path through the supposedly superior sailor fleet. "What in God's name is that ship?" he whispered. His tactical officer shook his head in wonder. "Whatever it is, sir, it's turning the tide." The sailor supreme commander, watching from his flagship, could not believe what he was seeing. The primitive human vessel was decimating his fleet's front line. "Target all weapons on that ship," he ordered. "I want it destroyed immediately." The sailor fleet reorganized, focusing their attack on the Vigilant. Hundreds of weapons fired simultaneously, flooding space with destructive energy. On the Vigilant's bridge, alarms blared as the ship absorbed the massive attack. "Shields holding at 60%, Garcia reported, amazement in her voice. "But they won't survive another barrage like that." Hayes closed his eyes, deepening his connection with Tien. "Then we won't give them a chance to fire again." The space around the Vigilant began to distort as the gravitational singularity drive activated. Blue light enveloped the ancient warship, creating a bubble of warped reality that expanded outward. The sailor vessels caught in its path shuddered as their navigational systems failed and their weapons went offline. "What's happening?" Collins asked, gripping his console as the bridge vibrated around them. Hayes sat perfectly still in the command chair, his eyes glowing with the same blue light as the ship's core. "The ultimate weapon," he said, his voice overlaid with an electronic tone. "A localized disruption of space-time itself." Through the viewports, the crew watched as sailor ships caught in the effect began to drift helplessly. Some were pulled toward each other, colliding in silent explosions. Others spun out of control, their engines firing randomly. "Sir," Garcia called out, concern in her voice, "your neural integration with Tien has exceeded safe parameters. Medical is showing dangerous brain activity." Hayes nodded slightly. "I know, but it's necessary." Through the link, he could feel the immense power flowing through the ship's systems, threatening to overwhelm both the vessel and his mind. On the Nova, Admiral Reeves stared at his tactical display in disbelief. "What am I looking at? How is one ancient ship doing this?" His science officer shook her head in wonder. "It's generating a controlled gravitational anomaly, sir. Technology we thought was theoretical." Reeves made a quick decision. "All ships form up behind the Vigilant. Target any sailor vessels that escape the anomaly field." The human fleet responded, rallying behind the ancient warship that had suddenly become their most powerful asset. One by one, they began picking off the disoriented sailor ships. Aboard the sailor command vessel, Supreme Commander Drazkor watched his carefully planned invasion crumble. "The humans hid this weapon from us," he hissed. "They deliberately appeared weak." His advisors had no explanation. "The technology is unlike anything in our records," one admitted. "That ship does not match any known human design parameters." Drazkor made the difficult choice. "Signal retreat. All vessels capable of hyperspace withdraw immediately." The surviving sailor ships began jumping away, abandoning their damaged comrades. What had begun as a conquest ended as a desperate escape. On the Vigilant, Hayes felt the strain of maintaining the singularity field. His vision blurred, and he could hear Dr. Warren urgently calling his name. The neural connection was burning through his brain, just as Foster had warned. "Commander, you need to disengage," Warren pleaded. "The integration is too deep." Hayes knew she was right, but he also knew the battle wasn't truly won. The sailor would return, better prepared for the Vigilant's capabilities. Humanity needed more than one ancient warship to secure its future. With tremendous effort, Hayes reached out through the neural link, not to control the ship, but to communicate with the semi-sentient Titan system itself. "We need to share," he thought clearly. "All of it. The designs, the weapons, everything Foster created." He felt the system's resistance. It had been programmed to protect its secrets. But it also recognized the logic in Hayes's argument. Humanity's survival depended on reclaiming this lost technology. The Vigilance communications array suddenly activated, broadcasting massive data packets to Earth Command. Schematics, technical specifications, research notes, the complete legacy of Dr. William Foster and his revolutionary designs. As the last of the Exhaler ships vanished into hyperspace, Hayes finally released his grip on the Singularity drive. The blue field collapsed, and he slumped in his chair, blood trickling from his nose. "Get him to medical," Garcia ordered as Russell and Warren rushed to Hayes' side. 3 weeks later, Hayes stood on the observation deck of the orbital shipyard above Earth. Below him, construction had already begun on a new class of vessels based on the Vigilance technology. The old warship itself was docked nearby, undergoing comprehensive analysis and upgrades. Admiral Reeves joined him, offering a respectful salute. "How are you feeling, Commander?" "Better," Hayes replied. The neural connection had been severed, but he still sometimes dreamed in that strange blue light. "The doctors say I'll make a full recovery." "Good," Reeves nodded. "Because Earth needs you. The Exhaler Confederation has requested peace talks. They're suddenly very interested in establishing boundaries and mutual respect." Hayes smiled faintly. Amazing what an old relic can accomplish. 6 months after the battle at Epsilon Choke Point, the galaxy had changed in ways few could have predicted. Commander Alan Hayes stood before the newly formed Interstellar Defense Council, his dress uniform adorned with medals that hadn't existed before the Exhaler conflict. "Commander Hayes, please continue your report on the Vigilant Initiative," said Counselor Maria Rodriguez, the highest-ranking civilian overseeing Earth's military affairs. Hayes nodded and activated the holographic display. Images of new warships appeared, each bearing design elements from the ancient Vigilant, but with sleek, modern modifications. "The first 5 vessels of the Vigilant class have completed their shakedown cruises," Hayes explained. "The Titan systems have been successfully implemented in all of them, though with the safety modifications Dr. Warren developed." A murmur ran through the assembled officials. The neural interface that had nearly killed Hayes had been redesigned to distribute the neural load across a small crew rather than a single commander. "And the Exhaler response?" asked Admiral Reeves from his seat at the council table. "Respectful distance," Hayes replied. "Their diplomatic envoys continue to stress their desire for peaceful relations. The demonstration of our restored technology has adjusted their perspective on humanity's place in the galactic order." On the view screen behind Hayes, surveillance footage showed sealer vessels carefully maintaining their distance from human border patrols. The once aggressive aliens now approached human space with noticeable caution. "And what of the original Vigilant?" Counselor Rodriguez asked. Hayes smiled slightly. "She continues to surprise us. The ship's core contains research data we're still deciphering." Dr. Foster was decades ahead of his contemporaries. Later that day, Hayes returned to the orbital shipyard where the Vigilant was docked. The ancient warship had been fully restored, its hull gleaming under the shipyard lights. As he approached the docking bay, he spotted Dr. Nicole Warren waiting for him. "The hero returns," she said with a smile. "How was the council meeting?" "Predictable," Hayes replied. "They want results without understanding the technology. Some things never change, even across centuries." They walked together toward the Vigilant's main airlock. Since the battle, Warren had become the leading expert on the Titan system and its effects on the human brain. "Your latest scans came back clean," she told him as they entered the ship. "No residual neural patterns from the interface. You're officially the first person to fully recover from deep Titan integration." Hayes nodded, but said nothing. He hadn't told Warren about the dreams that still came. Visions of space seen through the Vigilance sensors, the feeling of stellar winds against the hull, the quiet hum of the core that sometimes seemed to whisper in his mind. The corridors of the Vigilant were busy now, filled with scientists and engineers studying every aspect of the ancient vessel. What had once been a forgotten relic was now the most valuable ship in the fleet. They reached the bridge, where Lieutenant Garcia was overseeing operations. She saluted as Hayes entered. "Commander on deck," she announced. "At ease," Hayes said, taking in the transformed bridge. Modern displays had been integrated with the original systems, creating a hybrid of old and new technologies. "We're ready to begin the deep space trial whenever you are, Sir," Garcia reported. "The upgraded Singularity drive should be twice as effective as during the Sailor engagement." Hayes moved to the command chair, his chair, and ran his hand along its arm. Through his glove, he imagined he could feel the ship's awareness, waiting for his return. "There's something else you should know," Warren said quietly, moving beside him. "We've detected what appears to be a message embedded in the Titan code. It activated when we announced the trial date. A message from Foster?" Hayes asked. Warren shook her head. "No, it seems to be from the ship itself." She handed him a datapad. "It only contains one line. The journey begins." Hayes looked up at the view screen showing the stars beyond the shipyard. Somewhere out there, the Sailor were licking their wounds, but they weren't the only species in the galaxy. What other civilizations might exist that had dismissed humanity as primitive or unworthy? He settled into the command chair, feeling a familiar comfort as the ship seemed to welcome him home. "Let's find out what's waiting for us," Hayes said. "It's time the Vigilance showed us what she was really built for."